Yeah.
I am. I was muted for a second.
Okay. Hi, Laurids. Nice to have you here. We just wait for we just wait for Dominic to start the recording, because actually we are recording this interview.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Colm, why am I hearing my voice? Sorry. Okay, Laurids Sonne. Nice to have you here from Colorado. Luckily, this strange year of festival brought us to, even though we don't have events live, it brought us to have all these interviews with directors around the world. So in the end, this is a good thing somehow that happened. And you are showing this year your film Passerine In Time at the festival. It was premiered yesterday evening, and it will be available online until the end of the festival, until the 18th of October. And yeah, I will ask you some questions about your film, and then we will leave some space open to people if anyone has any question to ask you directly. So your film, I found it to be very poetic in its essentiality. It's very essential, but and it's a film, as you write. It is a study of the gestural encounter between the hand of the man and the entrapment of birds in it. When I saw it, the first thing I felt is that is a film really full of contrast, because we see this the movement of the hands of the humans. Humans appear just as hands for almost the whole film, and we see these rapid movements, and in the same time we see the stillness of the birds that are trapped in the hands. And in the same time, I also felt that there is a contrast between the nature of those movements of the hands, which are very mechanical. Somehow they are trying to analyze the birds, so they are making these repetitive movements, writing on the paper, opening the wing of the birds, and then just in the end we see another kind of movement which is much different from all the movements we've seen for the whole film, and it's is really much more free. Is the movement of the bird flying. So yeah, the first thing I wanted to ask you is how did this idea of making this film came to you, and if you also, yeah, if the impressions that I had are resonating to you or not.
Yeah, no, I think if we start with sort of your reading of the film, I think your sort of the illusions that you're pointing to are very correct. I mean, the way that I make work, I try not to be too well, I don't want to say didactic, but I cannot find another word than didactic. Be too sort of over the head. But I guess I can return to a little bit what it's about in a minute. So just to start with your question of how did it come about? Well, it came about in the way that there is, of course, a long precursor to this story, as there should be with any story, is that I am a son of a bird watcher, which could sound like something bad, but it's not. It's a good thing. And I've grown up amongst these sort of obsessive people who are either bird watchers or bird banders since I was a very young child. And it's an instrumental part of my being in the world as well, looking at the birds. So I was interested in making a film about the daily sort of goings and the labor of bird banders, which are the guys who are entrapping the bird. That's sort of the term, a bird bander. who trap the bird for scientific reasons. So I was interested in this sort of subculture, right? That I was mostly part of the culture that looked at things from afar. And I was, shall we say, enchanted by the idea of these people that get to do something that none of us, or most of us, rarely get to do. That is to hold something that is entirely wild and non-human in the palm of their hands. I thought that in it was something immensely magical, right? In relation to our aspirations of freedom and flight. So really, the questions that I wrote down, that the essentials really, I think, is an aesthetic choice. You know, I can't, yeah, it's just an aesthetic, sort of like keeping it simple, being a one-man band shooting on this island. I was on the island of Christiansø, which is a Danish island off the coast of Sweden. You take the ferry from Ystad to Bornholm, where my family is from as well. So really it deals with questions of labor, right? Deals with the labor of science, the hand as the tool that is performing the labor of science. And in a way, it is also questioning our sort of, or you could say humanity's pursuit for knowledge of the unknown through reason, through things that can be measured and can be weighed and can be quantified. And that sort of conflict that exists in entrapping something to retrieve knowledge from it, something that has its own way of perceiving and being in the world. So those are some of the questions that the film deal with. Did I answer you correctly or properly, or did you get what? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting. I didn't know it was also something that was coming from your family, like that everything started from your personal experience somehow in your family. And
yeah, I like to generally say I'm equally interested in birds and the humans who look at birds. So my other films are also about films about people who are looking at other beings. So.
Yeah, I think it's something you can perceive from your film, because it's really, with the fact that you are so essential, as I said, it's you are somehow saying much more. Like I could feel that there are some themes that are even beyond that specific activity, as you said, and that are just questioning our human desire to know. It's true. And in this, probably there is the poetic aspect of your film. I wanted to ask you if it's this way of working, like this very observative way of filming, is something it's part of you in general, that you apply to your work in general, or if it's something that you just experienced in this specific work.
No, I think I work in various ways depending on the project, but some of it also, you know, film is often made when you're editing. So this film was conceived as something entirely different when I started out. But I think for me, there's so many ways that one can question what it means to bear witness to something, and I think I apply that differently in different films, and I think just to say that is something that we have to be increasingly aware of how we're being witness to our current moment, or we're being witness to history, and how we're going into the future. And I think for me, and now I'm talking around, I guess, method, because for me, it's a question of approaching what it even means to bear witness from many different angles. Because, well, I guess you could think of it as editing. Because, yeah, come back to editing, because it's all about thinking about the data, right? What is the truth in these images, and how do we project our notion of what it means to bear witness in that moment. So I think I work in many different ways. I'm a person who don't necessarily solely consider myself a filmmaker. I'll be working in different materials, which is fundamentally a part of my praxis, in that informs me in different ways around the same topics that I'm dealing with, whether that's writing text or drawing or other things. I don't know if I tried to answer, but it was rough. It was hard.
No, yeah, that's interesting. It's, I mean, this aspect of how do you witness something is really, I think, at the basis of everyone who makes film, and also who edits, because you can change a film through editing. And yeah, and your film is also very much a film of editing. I mean, this specific film, I haven't seen other works, but this one is really also a film of editing. And yeah, actually, you mentioned something that is also part of another question I wanted to ask you, because yeah, I read that you are an interdisciplinary artist. So film is not your it's not the only medium that you use in your art. And I just wanted to ask you how you came to work in the art field, and what are your, at the moment, the main interests that you have in art, not just in the field of films, but in general, like when you work on something.
Well, I'll try and make this brief. How I came to this way of working with art is by sort of many detours, in a way. I started studying anthropology because I found that, at least at that time, I found that, and I was working with art as a younger person, I found that anthropology was very founded in sort of not being in the field, at least where I was in my career. And I had a desire for being in the field. So and I'd been working in art in various ways, but I became part of, or started being part of, a Danish American art collective doing art in public space, done projects in Sweden and elsewhere, which was much more of, shall we say, an immediate way of being in the field, that spoke directly to my nature. Because I mean, that should go for all work, mostly, that it starts with curiosity, and it starts with maybe some sort of naiveness, right? And so I started working, and I did that for a good amount of time as part of a group that did projects in public space with other people, communities and whatnot. So that has sort of, at least it's informed my way of working, but also became a sort of a pillar in my way of being, that I need to work in different materials. So what were the other? The other question was more, well, primarily my work is in film now, and I don't get to do other things much. So primarily in film. Yeah.
And are there any specific themes that you are focusing on at the moment, or is varied?
No, I think I keep. I mean, I don't think I know that my work will keep and is situating around interspecies relations, questions of representations of non-human entities or non-humans in this world, on this planet that we're living. It will continue dealing with, I guess, questions of how we're producing knowledge and the labor of producing that knowledge. So like the systemic questions of, well, questions of enlightened knowledge and what systems of knowledge mean. And I'm currently a PhD student at a university, so I'm deeply sort of involved in this endeavor in a way.
Yeah, that's interesting. And okay, so my last question is, if you are working on new projects now, like currently working on films or other art projects.
Sorry, did I invite somebody? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm clicking on stuff I shouldn't be clicking. Sorry. What was the question?
Yeah, the question is if you are now working on other new projects in film or with other art forms.
Yeah, I'm working on multiple projects because it also proves that being a PhD student, they want to tear you apart in all sorts of directions. So you're working sort of in small time frames all the time. I'm going on a shoot in North Carolina next week. Much more of something that I'm working on that's a processual piece in figuring out what landscape means or notions of landscape. Then I'm really going into something that's sort of new for me in terms of always being a one-man band who just, go out and find contacts and just do it on my own, is I'm working on a script for a feature film that would demand funding and longer processes. So I'm working on that in sort of like step-by-step kind of way. Otherwise, I'm working on little things all the time. I have had an installation work where I sort of collected all my memories of encounters with other species from my childhood, or encounters in my family, from the pet jackdaw I had as a kid to encountering a mountain lion. I've collected all these as sort of like field notes, or you could call them poems. I just call them field notes that I'm making into a film. So a film that is a book in a way.
Great. That's it sounds interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I have the impression that you are somehow you are doing various kind of projects, like different kinds, and we are very curious to see other of your works in the future. And
Thank
you. Actually, I finished the questions that I wanted to ask you, but if you want to add something, feel free. And otherwise, I will maybe ask if there are any questions from the people that are following.
I mean, I work very well with questions, but no, I don't know. I could tell all sorts of things about shooting this film, which was, in itself like a great experience, because that's also, right, what film becomes. It's like, for me, it's a completely different experience than it is for you, because for me, it's all these exterior experiences I had of living on this island for 2 weeks, working with bird banders, getting up at 5 a.m. and doing that every day, and then drinking beers at noon because, why not? So that's, for me, that's also the interesting part, is that there is this exterior experience to that for me in doing it, in that curiosity, in being out there and experiencing the world with and through other people's eyes.
Yeah, that's interesting what you say, because it's true. I agree that, of course, then people will always see the result of what an artist does, but sometimes also all the process is very interesting, and it's good that, I mean, I find it interesting to talk about this also in a talk like this one. And yeah, I didn't thought about that, but as you said, I can imagine that such a film requires also like really to decide to spend the time of your life in a completely different way, like following the timing and the rules of those people who were watching birds. So it's not just a film, but it's also an experience. I can imagine.
Yeah, there is, like, of course, like many things in terms of a craft. So there's a craft to what the bird banders are doing, and there's a rhythm to what they're doing. So you begin to understand, like, they walk certain rounds. So they go from net number 1 to, and then they will go in these cycles and take breaks at certain times. So you figure out that rhythm in a way too, and when to shoot and when to tell them to slow down, because it's of course also it makes it at least more complicated when you're shooting on 16mm film, as I was doing in this situation, because that's costly, at least for whatever, an individual like me who doesn't have financial backing, is that I have to evaluate every shot. I can't just roll. I have to say, okay, now is the moment to shoot. And like, I have a hummingbird feeder on my balcony here in Colorado. And last weekend I stood for 3 hours and waited to get the right moment to shoot a little bit of film of my hummingbird.
Wow.
But it took me 3 hours to figure out its behavior, right? Because you don't know, a hummingbird is quick. It will do like swift movement and it's gone. So to get that on film, like actual film, I had to, but anyways, there's a learning process, really, is what I'm saying. That is also the fun part, is of course, being part of it, but also figuring out these rhythms.
Yeah. Did you film the hummingbird with the 16mm as well?
I did. And I had a goal of panning into it, so that made it more difficult to. I just wanted,
Yeah. It's
I just wanted to record it.
it's interesting. Yeah.
But just, if you're looking, right? If you're looking and attuned to looking, and sort of looking with a thing, then I think, you discover completely different things, also about yourself in that process, and the way that you're looking at things, which necessarily doesn't come out in the film. So it's also like, the personal journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like it never happens. It almost always never happened that a person spends so much time observing, unless he has the excuse to make a film. So sometimes it's true that what the filmmaker is searching for is the experience, and the film is almost an excuse. Like it's just the visible result of something that you have lived. Yeah.
No, but I agree, and that's, for me, there are, of course, other reasons why I birdwatch myself, but it is also because of the intentionality of going out to look for signs. I mean, and now I'm not getting spiritual, but for signs of movement, for signs of signs of movement, behavior in, and if you're a bird watcher, and you can narrow down what is inside a bush by how species behaved, right? You will know your neighborhood or where you're going. So that for me, the intentionality of being in and with nature is important, or being within an environment is important. Granted, that's not something that we can all sort of afford ourselves in the way that we're living right now. And I think about it often in terms of where I live, Boulder, Colorado, which is very outdoorsy and very, shall we say, outdoorsy and techy and sporty and fitty and healthy and all those things. But really what the majority of things is about how can I consume nature in a way that it enhances my my own physical being. I saw in the newspaper that there was a workshop where you could go to learn how to sit and be still in nature. I mean, sure. But I think we've reached somewhere, if you have to go to a workshop to learn to sit still on a log out in nature. So for me, it's a way of looking at my environment differently, and also looking through a lens is an interesting thing. You could say therapeutic for me. So anyway, those are some thoughts about that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing them. It's really, I find this interesting because it's and now I speak as a filmmaker myself. Like I also feel that one really searches for the experience, and then the experience that is somehow pushing you to train some aspects of yourself, like train the observation, train the ability to see, as you said, to see movements. So yeah, it's something I can really understand, and probably a lot of other filmmakers that are maybe will see this interview could connect with this.
Yeah, I don't think that, I completely agree. I don't think that the desire to sort of read moments and look through a lens is inherently associated only with bird watching. I mean, that is what filmmaking has, those aspects too. But there is a kinship.
Yeah, and I like your somehow obsessive side, because your film is also a bit like you can see the obsessive aspect of the filmmaker that is following the same actions, the same thing for a lot of time. This shows really some, how to say, some love for what you are observing, like really deciding to spend so much time of your life and so much energy and waking up at 5 just to watch those specific actions day after day is I think it comes out from your film.
Yeah, I think thank you. I think that's also like, I mean, the film deals with the labor or the repetition of labor too, right? In terms of the labor that these field scientists are doing, but we cannot also forget the sort of the labor of filmmaking that is also, a work process that has repetition, that has all these different tempos and refrains and such going on in it. So I like that you saw that in the film, the repetition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay, so let's see if there are any questions. I am the only one who cannot see this chat, so I will ask Colm if to tell me if there are any questions from someone.
I don't see any questions, but maybe there's another channel that has questions.
No, okay, we don't have a question, so I'm glad that we could meet online, and thank you very much for this interview. And yeah, I hope we will be able to see other of your works in the future.
I hope to come by sometime. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for showing the film, and have a lovely evening.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you. Bye.